Vitiate was considered one of the most evil beings to ever exist from the very moment of his birth. Born with pitch black eyes, inhuman intelligence, and an appetite for torture and death, one can only wonder where this creature of vile darkness came from. Well, enter his father, Lord Dramath. Welcome back, disciples of the Force, to the archives we have been awaiting you. In Star Wars, once in a millennium, a truly great being will come around from seemingly nowhere. Vitiate would go on to become one of the most fearsome beings the Force had ever seen, a terror which would reshape the galaxy as we know it. However, his father, Lord Dramath, was much less accomplished than his son would become. Unlike his illegitimate son, Dramath may just be one of the most pathetic and despicable Sith Lords in all of the lore. In today's Holocron, we are going to cover everything we know about Vitiate's father, including the horrific fate that awaited him when his son rose to power and sought revenge. The ancient Dark Lord Lord Dramath lived during the years of Marka Ragnos' reign and his ascension to rulership, the Golden Age. In this time, the Sith Empire had not yet entered the prime of its Golden Age, but it was nearing the climax. The Sith of this era were so wealthy with the growing leadership of Ragnos and his conquests, as more and more resources were funneled into the Sith Empire, making the rulers of certain worlds very wealthy. One of these rulers of a world would be Lord Dramath, who ruled over the planet known as Medriaas. Sith are meant to be known for their ambition and their desire for strength and power in the Force. However, Lord Dramath was not known for this at all. He was known for being an underachiever, a Sith with little ambition outside of what could serve himself in the immediate. He likely knew that he could never be anywhere close to the power or the respect that Marka Ragnos commanded, and so he was content with his corner of Sith space. Dramath was actually one of the few fully trained Sith Lords on his world, and since the planet was out of the way from the main cluster of Sith core planets, it flew very much under the radar of the Greater Empire. Because of this, there was no true rival Sith attempting to challenge Dramath's claim to the throne, and there were no threats on his main world. And so, Dramath was content to kick back and relax, leading a hedonistic lifestyle in which he denied himself nothing that his eyes desired, including a slew of female subjects. It was this pathetic lifestyle unbefitting of a Dark Lord that would give rise to Dramath's own desolation. One of these women would happen to be the wife of a poor farmer and would end up conceiving a child with him, a child that she would name Tenebrae. When Dramath found out, he ordered his mistress to drown their newborn child, but the woman secretly defied him and continued to raise him on her own, pretending that her poor farmer husband was the legitimate father of Tenebrae. Dramath was foolish and was none the wiser to her deception. He was so wrapped up in his own lavish, lazy lifestyle. As Tenebrae grew away from his eye, he would end up conceiving another child with a woman, and this time, he allowed his concubine to keep her. Evidently, he decided that this time he actually needed an heir to his kingdom, so, being the egotist that he was, he named the child after himself, Dramath II. But it wasn't very long after this that he began to hear rumors of one of the continents of Medriaas, there, where a rival warlord claiming to be his son was rapidly gaining power and following. In Dramath's absence, Tenebrae had grown up to manifest powerful abilities, and he was considered evil incarnate, chosen by the dark side. The farmer knew that Tenebrae was not his son, as neither he nor his wife could touch the Force, and she had been unfaithful. In his rage, the farmer attacked his wife, but Tenebrae, being very young, would put a stop to it, snapping the farmer's neck. However, the sick young boy would not stop here, as he decided to mentally torture his mother for her infidelity, months on end, before he eventually killed her as well. Tenebrae likely did this simply because he could, no greater sense of revenge. Then, Tenebrae would begin his plan. Using his vast and a raw amount of power, he conquered his village of origin before moving around from town to town. Tenebrae rapidly began to gain followers, as the people of the world saw him as different from Lord Dramath and rebelled. Tenebrae was young, but he was powerful and ambitious, and he punished anyone who got out of line, or just did so for his own amusement. Many Sith of the world of Medriaas were extremely pleased to see the rising of a younger ruler, fearing him far more than they did Lord Dramath. With Tenebrae gaining a rapid following, Dramath quickly made his way to finding him. But this was not intended to be a grand reunion. Dramath promised to either enslave the boy, or, if he were too powerful, execute him there. However, when Dramath finally met the boy of 10, he would realize how wrong he was. Tenebrae was more powerful than Dramath could have ever dreamed, and upon meeting his illegitimate father, Tenebrae decided to make a public display of his own power. At 10, he dominated the man that claimed to be his father, stripped him of any ability to touch or use the Force, humiliating him to the greater Sith, showing them for how weak he truly was. A very talented 10-year-old was able to completely dominate a fully fledged Sith Lord because of how complacent he had grown. Dramath was exceptionally weak, and he had been hiding it from his people. But Tenebrae would not kill his father as we previously believed. Instead, he would chain him up, hold him captive for years as he consolidated the rest of the world of Medriaas. By 13, Tenebrae visited the now in power great Marca Ragnos, taking his pilgrimage to the Sith Emperor for one very important reason. He wanted to request recognition of rulership over all of his father's territory. Ragnos was extremely impressed with the boy's ambition, which contrasted with that of Dramath's lack of it. The Dark Lord could see how ineffectual Dramath had been for the Sith, and so he declared Tenebrae Lord Vitiate, and handed him over rulership of the planet, designated by the Golden Empire. Vitiate would rename the world to Nathema, and would go on to study the powerful secrets of the dark side there, becoming known as much of a recluse. During this time, it was recorded that Vitiate would formally execute Dramath, but his story does not end there. Vitiate would then begin his hunt for Dramath II, his younger half-brother, but Dramath II managed to flee from Nathema with his followers, and would create a new life for himself, finding refuge on the snowy world known as Rekiad. Dramath II would eventually die there, and his disciples would entomb him in a hidden crypt, located in the first of two plateaus that comprised the Twin Spears. It was in this tomb that Dramath II left behind a datapad, one of the few mentions of Nathema and Lord Vitiate, and from this datapad, a millennia later, Revan would discover the secret of who Vitiate really was. But back to Vitiate. While the rest of the Sith had deemed Dramath as a forgotten and embarrassing memory, Vitiate had secretly kept his father's spirit alive in a sense, placing the Dark Lord's spirit in an old holocron. After the golden age of the Sith would fall with Naga Sadow, and the Jedi and the Republic became aware of the Sith yet again, Vitiate performed the ritual of Nathema to gain ultimate power. He then would keep his father's spirit in this single holocron for the following 1,000 years as his power grew exponentially. In his pastime, Vitiate would torture the spirit of Dramath for his personal amusement, and Vitiate would come to find a kindred spirit in his father. The holocron was locked away in a secret vault beneath a structure known as the Sanitarium, which was the very last habitable structure on the entire world of Nathema, especially after Vitiate drained it of all life. As the centuries would wear on, Vitiate did actually talk to his father a great deal, and in a twisted sense, became the closest thing that Vitiate had to a confidant. Never would he consider him his father, his power was too great for that, but someone to talk to occasionally, absolutely. And now we reach the fate of Dramath, and we have to go one of two ways. The ending for this is determined by your character's decision in the Old Republic game, where your character, known as the Outlander, and a Sith by the name of Lana Beniko investigate a vault of Nathema. The two stumble across the holocron of Lord Dramath, and the spirit of him is eventually released. Thankful to finally have been found, Dramath relays his story and connection to the now Emperor Valkorion. When Dramath is done, he begs for them to destroy the holocron so that he can finally be free from his eternal torment. In the light side scenario, the Outlander has mercy on Lord Dramath and frees him from his eternal bondage. But in the dark side version, the Outlander listens to the Sith Beniko and keeps the holocron in case Dramath becomes useful later, which he actually does. If the Outlander keeps Dramath, then he goes on to help them in their fight against Valkorion's daughter Valen. And then later, when everyone confronts Valkorion together, Dramath is one to shoot some nasty final words at his vile son before sacrificing his own spirit to weaken Valkorion. Interestingly, in this scenario, the dark side option ends in a much more satisfying conclusion to the relationship between Vitiate and Dramath than the light side story does, and I much prefer the dark side version. But anyway friends, that was the story of the father of Vitiate, Lord Dramath. A man who began out as a pathetic embarrassment to all things Sith, wasting his power away and rulership on his hedonistic lifestyle, and throwing away money that he never earned. He had no ambition, and was in truth a weakling, one to be culled by someone stronger. In the end, assuming the right choices are made, Dramath has somewhat of a redemption, making a final self-sacrifice to stop his son, showing that 1,000 years of torture is more than enough to mature one in thinking. But tell us, what did you think about this Sith Lord? Did you believe that there was anything else to him besides being a footnote in Vitiate's long, illustrious career, as maybe the greatest Dark Lord that has ever lived? Maybe the most powerful. But let us know your thoughts in the comments down below, as great things often have small beginnings. As always, my friends, thank you so much for joining us in the archives today, and may the Force be with you.